Hi, all. This is Jan of the Jan Files. Today, I'm not going to talk about the big ugly bill. I'm going to talk about the bill that passed last night. It's the Rescissions Bill 2025. And it basically is clawing back money that we've already put out there and in some cases agreed to. So what I want you to know, there are basically three different sections. The first one is about environmental policies and climate change, where they took out $500 million. Then the next thing is foreign aid and global health, where they took out $7.9 billion. And finally, the last piece, which you probably know about, is the $1.1 billion that they took away from PBS and NPR. So let's start with the environmental protection. Well, or lack of environmental protection. It really is in response to climate change. These programs were anticipating climate change, understood that there was climate change, and so these programs were put in place to help developing countries that needed the assistance so that they could deal with what the climate change is already impacting, but also anticipate, being able to anticipate by creating renewable energy sources. So I'm going to kind of give this a little bit of a list, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. So there is a clean technology fund that was started in 2008 that we typically invest $1 billion into. They've taken $500 million out of that. In terms of what this looks like, it's also the Global Environment Facility, which we entered into 1991, and the Montreal Project. Now, what did these programs do? Well, they reduced greenhouse gas emissions. They catalyzed our private sector investment in clean technologies in these underdeveloped countries, typically often with United States companies. And it helped the countries to build climate resilient economies, which is incredibly important as we all move forward and understand what climate change is doing to the planet. That, I guess, we all doesn't include the GOP, though. Anyway, it is helping them transition, in some cases, kind of make that leapfrog into renewable energy, because a lot of them don't even have energy sources in place. Okay, so that was where our aid, our technology, our resources were helping, so that we could help create these kind of communities in underdeveloped nations. We also, these efforts were to protect the rainforests, endangered species, prevent toxic pollution from industrial and mining sources. This is what all of kind of the different pieces of these programs would do. Now, the Clean Technology Program was in place since 2008. The Global Environment Facility we've been part of since 1991. And the Montreal Project, which is a great example to really understand the impact, is a treaty that was signed by all the countries back in 1987. And the purpose of that treaty was to start the process of eliminating the gases that depleted our ozone layer. It has been wildly successful, okay? At least, the scientists say that at least 1 million people don't have skin cancer because they've been able to start to reinvigorate, probably a terrible scientific word, the ozone layer, right? And so it's been a huge success. We are now, this is a treaty, right? Since 1987, we're pulling our money back from them, right? It actually has been shown to have a huge impact on the ozone layer, and we're pulling back. Okay, so it's going, the overall impact in terms of the world is also that we're impacting the progress that we're supposed to be accomplishing through the Paris Agreement. okay? And what we need to do to participate to help other countries do what they need to do, because all of this is global, folks. Obviously, as climate change just doesn't impact one country at a time. I mean, it has an effect everywhere. And we recognize, well, again, we in the past have recognized that we have a large role in helping the world and our planet to deal with these issues. They have just, again, between this and the big, beautiful, ugly ass bill, it's devastating to our efforts to work on climate change, to stop pollution, in the air, in the water, to develop new technology. They're basically behind all of this is they want to encourage more coal mining and fossil fuel. So that is exhibited by what they passed in the big, beautiful bill and in this bill. Now, there's another consequence to this besides the climate piece of this, okay, and the devastation that will happen as a result of us pulling back money and resources. Who is going to do this now? Who is going to step in to these developing countries and also countries like India, Ukraine, South Africa are part of these programs. It's not, and obviously other smaller countries in Africa. Who's going to step in? Well, your guess, my guess, China. You think China's going to step in? Russia probably normally would rather, but doesn't seem to have a lot of economic power right now. So we have created alliances and allegiances through these kinds of humanitarian efforts. We are now stepping back. And so what do you think that's going to do? It's really not an answer I'm going to give you. I think you can figure it out, right? So this is huge in terms of our global power or global soft power in the world. And why is it being done? I don't have the answer. The only thing I can think of is it's just like a big FU to climate change, and they all think it's a hoax. Now, the biggest piece that they're cutting is foreign aid and global health. It's $7.9 billion that are being pulled back. The only program that the Senate actually didn't claw all the money back was $400 million at a PEPFAR, which is the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. So they didn't cut that piece out. But that's not the only way we have supported the efforts to mitigate AIDS, AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis. These are all, things that we have always contributed to help eradicate, okay? We also have often go in on diseases when Ebola hits, et cetera, and other things. So this is really a huge cut to our humanitarian effort. But it's not just those things that they're cutting. They are cutting pandemic preparedness. Oh my God. Pandemic preparedness. Okay, thank you. I got it. So they're pulling out of WHO, which is the World Health Organization. They are rescinding funds to international agencies and initiatives that help detect, prevent, and respond to future pandemics. We know the pandemic is worldwide. For us to think that we should isolate ourselves is stupid, and I don't know what the other word besides stupid would be. It's horrific. But that's the intent, okay, is to take us out of that stream, to take us out of those kinds of communications and say, you know what, we're not going to do this. It also impacts vaccines that will development and distribution pipelines. The global disease surveillance becomes weaker. And our international coordination is going to be far slower because we are not having these conversations and participating at this stage, right? Being ahead of the game. I think, I'm not sure if I said it impacts, besides HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria. These are all diseases that are current and that need to be addressed, that we were addressing, which has now been ixnayed, gone. We're not doing that anymore. So what it means is fewer test kits, fewer antivirals, bed nets, vaccines, and higher risk of drug-resistant strains of TB and HIV, which threatens all of us. But I think probably the most pathetic, inhumane, is the cuts to programs for maternal health and children. They rescinded aid, including funding for prenatal care, safe childbirth services, newborn vaccinations, and nutrition and hygiene programs. Mothers and children, okay? That saves millions of lives every year. So you know what cutting it means, right? Those millions of lives won't be saved. And who is going to be responsible? Us, the United States government. Because what? We spend too much money abroad, but we've just contributed $2 trillion to the deficit with the cuts for the billionaires? Really? Like, they didn't cut and now we're going to have no deficit. They cut and added to the deficit. But the cuts they make, like this $9 billion, means a lot to mothers and children in underdeveloped countries. $9 billion is a drop in the bucket. But they felt, hey, you know what? Let's cut these programs. Let's show everybody what assholes we are. Sorry, I can't say it any other way. The loss of funding is, for mothers and children, is unacceptable. And the last piece of this is the NPR public broadcasting cut of $1.1 billion. There is zero reason to do this, folks. Cut programs for children, cut educational programs for everybody, to cut programs like Ken Burns made, like on the Civil War or on baseball. Why? What could you possibly get by cutting public broadcasting systems, which also that money goes to local PBS stations and local news and actually emergency warning systems that you get through your TV or your radio. So they're cutting that. Why? I don't know. I guess, this is, I think, part of Project 2025, which is actually all of this. So cutting this kind of programming, basically, besides the arts and educational programs, I think probably they were far more interested in targeting NPR because it's a news service, and they don't like the way they report. They'd rather have entertainment news, or I should just say entertainment, like Fox. But anyway, this is what happened last night. This is what was cut. As Americans, we should all be appalled and ask them where their humanity is. I don't think they have it anymore. I don't think they care. I think the only thing they care about is themselves and their orange blob. Anyway, that's what happened last night. You should know, pay attention, and make sure you share so that people understand what is going on. Okay? Pay attention. Thank you. Subscribe if you haven't. Take care. Bye.